This video was brought to you by the wonderful people on screen here who support me over at Patreon. If you want to support this channel and what I do, then please check the link in the description or the link at the end of the video. I like to have fun with the comments on my channel. Usually if I get into a disagreement with someone, I'll give them an open invitation to come on and speak with me. I'll go ahead and preface this video by saying that I will, in fact, open this invitation to one particular commenter. His name is SodomandAmeri, spelled with a K. For funsies, I tried to look up what the need would be for spelling America with a K, and it turns out that it's supposed to denote a type of fascism. This was a spelling of the word that Rammstein used in their album Rise Rise, and the sentiments toward our country weren't exactly positive in that song. Maybe I'm just reading too much into a single letter, but I figured I'd go ahead and investigate it, and found myself in a rabbit hole fairly quickly. Interesting stuff. Anyway, let's go ahead and roll the intro and get right into it. Alright, so the amount of stupid we're going to be dealing with today is higher than normal, but there is one avenue of sanity we can hide behind, and that is usually the fan art section. And because I know that it upsets this person, we're going to be focusing exclusively on Rule 63 fan art. In fact, actually, let's continue the episode like this. Also, my partner, that you guys should know from the channel, Raziel, has recently made a channel called Creepy Eevees. She's at 400 subscribers so far, but I think with a little luck, we might be able to get her over 1,000 pretty easy. I'll need your guys' help for that, though. Please go ahead and click her link in the description, check out what she's got on her channel, and let her know what you think. Also, subscribe and all that other fun stuff. You know, all the same stuff you guys do for me. I would be indebted to you guys if you did. Anyways, on to the fan art. First, we have a heavily chested Rule 63 Suris by Baphomet, then some rather large fruits by Wombologist, and then this Catgirl Suris by Jack the Vulture, which I'm going to use as my Discord icon for a little while. Yeah. Oh yeah, one last point of information before we get through the comment. This guy is apparently the owner of the God Guts and Glory blog that we went over on Monday. Now to have fun with my new play toy.
LOL, someone said you were doing a live stream about me, but I missed it. Wow. I missed some fat keyboard warrior complain about my awesome website and irrefutable facts. Ha! 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 Hey, keep it up. You keep proving my point. And the most interesting point is that every popular, quote, atheist on YouTube has a fan base made up of almost strictly LGBT_P.
Oh, buddy. Calling me the keyboard warrior, but you typed out that whole thing? I'm guessing you're not very good at self-awareness, are you? Also, if you ever wonder why there's a GSRM community that gets behind atheists so often, it's because we're a little more accepting than idiots like you. Well, for the most part. There are a couple bad actors. Also, I love how you say irrefutable facts, yet when I went through your blog, you screwed up practically everything that could have even slightly resembled a fact.
I can't even type this without laughing at that fact. I mean, how do you become so pathetic that you are an public speaking figure for a bunch of miserable sexual perverts?
Well, I don't give a shit what my audience does in the bedroom. As long as it's between consenting adults, they can do them, or their boyfriends, or their girlfriends, or anyone in between. In fact, people like you seem to be the only one obsessed with what happens in other people's bedrooms. Kinda sad, really. Do you not get laid enough?
Hey, here's a question for you. What's the difference between an atheist, a homosexual, and a pedophile? Answer, a matter of time.
Well, I'm gonna go ahead and link an article from UC Davis. It goes over this whole correlation between homosexuality and pedophilia that idiots like you purport for. It actually has the entire historical context for it, as well as the research that debunks this myth. It's a bit of a long read, so I know it's something you won't actually do. Fairly certain the only thing you actually read is written in early modern English, specifically in 1611. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you seem like a man of one book.
Dude, you should just tuck your tail and go away. If Matt Powell made you cry, you're not going to want to get into an intellectual conversation with me.
You are aware that it was Nakasuchi who was talking with Matt Powell, and that I could actually eviscerate you in a conversation pretty handedly? Like, no, seriously, hiding behind your keyboard seems to be the best strategy for you right now. You should consider doing that more. Though, that open invitation is there, as I said before.
And no, I don't need to be like an atheist who finds some abstract, smart-sounding words to use from the dictionary. I just stick to plainness of speech, common to man, and irrefutable facts that you hate but can't actually refute, such as, there are only two genders, and there's no such thing as a transgender.
Alrighty, let's go ahead and tackle this one from the top. First of all, that was about the most roundabout way you could have said big words are scary. I get that you're incredibly proud of the fact that you're an uneducated hick, but there is a better way. Also, if you're looking to expand your vocabulary, don't use a dictionary, use a thesaurus. Come on, man, use the right tools for the job. Also, irrefutable facts like there's only two genders, you do realize that gender deals with sociology and not biology, right? Again, I'll have a linked article for you to read if you plan on educating yourself. Also, even if we didn't take gender as a sociological construct, there would still be such things as transgender people. There are literally hundreds of them in my audience. I guarantee you that everything you consider making up a man or a woman can be changed by modern science. Either that, or it doesn't matter for the conversation. But you know what? Speaking of conversations, I'd be more than happy to educate you about that. After you've done some homework, of course, which will be linked in the description.
I don't take part in your fantasy world, and I know that you perverts and freaks are not comfortable in the real world where you're reminded by biology and nature that you are wrong. I mean, look, 99% of you have an avatar of either anime or a furry. I don't have to invent insults, this stuff just writes itself because you guys are a bunch of freaks that you once had to go visit the traveling carnival to witness.
You should probably not be talking about a fantasy world, my dude, considering that yours literally has unicorns, fairies, a global flood that wiped out all of civilization that never actually happened. Seriously, I have a lot of respect for the Bible as a piece of literature. I literally just did a video talking about the historicity of Jesus and the literature that existed on that. It's one of many videos that I'm going to be doing on that subject, but I digress. You're the one that comports his life to a book that has several things in it that are demonstrably false and or straight up fairy tales. You know, like people being made of clay and ribs, walking on water, blowing trumpets and destroying an entire city. You know, things that don't actually happen in reality. But I'm the one in a fantasy world? You make me laugh. And it's people like you that make other Christians look bad. But hey, you're giving me something fun to do. Anywho, let's move on to his next comment.
The loser is stating that a Twitter user got suspended by saying some pretty dumb shit. I think he's referring to the fact that the superior intellect actually said such things as, there are only two gender, singular, there is no such thing as a transgender, as transforming from your birth gender into another is not actually possible, not with hormones and not even with surgery, mutilation. Homosexuals are frequently getting diseases that normal heterosexuals do not get, nor illnesses such as gastrointestinal parasites. You know, actual matter of facts. A normal person would be questioning why straight up matter of facts are banned as hate speech on Twitter. Speaking of hate speech, that's another work of fiction. If you didn't hate Christians and the truth they live by, you wouldn't be spewing this nonsense.
Well, you are aware that you said a whole lot more than that, right? Don't strawman yourself, my dude. Own up to the things you did. Of course, now that your account is suspended, we no longer have a record of the 50+ tweets that responded to you. Otherwise, I'd go digging through that for some more hilarity. But for now, we'll focus on your comment. I'll cite to what I originally said about the two-gender thing, and you can go ahead and look at the research for yourself. You know, educate yourself. There's no reason to be proud of being an ignorant idiot. Or, as I call Steven Anderson, an obtuse moron. By the way, there's no such thing as a birth gender. You are not born with a gender. This is something that is assigned. Even sex is technically assigned because we have to assess multiple criterion in order to determine sex. These are nonsense concepts akin to saying your birth name. I was not born with a name. Neither were you. That was assigned to me. On your point about the intestinal parasites, you are aware that 16% of people who are heterosexual have them? Seriously. Straight people get the same diseases. What a concept. I'll go ahead and link some reading for you in there as well. Yes, there is a higher proportion of homosexual men that have it. But your statement was that straight people didn't get this disease. So I'll go ahead and link the scholarly work for that if you're not too terribly worried about some big scary words. Also, on getting kicked off of Twitter, Twitter's a private company. Hate speech laws one way or another don't actually matter when it comes to private companies. You are aware of that, right? It would probably be a good idea to familiarize yourself with terms of service. Oh, right, that would take reading.
845, you just exposed what a feeble mind you are when you started speaking about the OK hand sign as being a dog whistle for white supremacy groups. Are you one of those idiots that will accuse everyone of being a racist if they use the OK hand sign? Ha! 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 You have ingested way too much fluoride in the water and CNN on TV.
Oh boy, I'm gonna have to educate you on how dog whistles work, aren't I? I'm gonna go ahead and link an article on that as well. You're gonna have a lot of reading to do before you can respond to this. Basically, ignoring any of the origins of the sign in Sweden, we find that the sign began as a troll and then ultimately evolved to be utilized by white supremacy groups. So awkwardly, it began as fiction and then evolved into fact. This is because someone can use the sign and then go back into plausible deniability as to whether or not they were actually trying to emote the dog whistle. That does not mean that I would accuse anyone of using the sign of being a white supremacist. We would have to corroborate other data points, like whether or not they're an advocate for an ethno-state. If a giant wall of text is too scary for you, though, I'll go ahead and link a ContraPoints video called Decrypting the Alt-Right. This goes in depth to the actual mechanics of this hand gesture and more. I'm sure watching some TV on YouTube is going to be a whole lot less scary for you.
Are children consent when a tax-funded entity removes children from a home and then gives preferential placement of foster and adoption into queer homes to deliberately provide a perverted form of what a family unit is? Blah 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 blah. Nothing else I say after this point actually has any effect on anything.
Yeah, I didn't feel like going into the rest of that particular comment. Go ahead and pause the previous part of this video if you really want to read it in depth. But suffice to say, this seems like you think that CPS is some grand conspiracy to create a pedophile ring. Except it's not, and in fact, classically, it's been infinitely harder in the United States for gay parents to adopt. I'll go ahead and link another article to show exactly how hard it is to adopt a child, and exactly how much harder it is to adopt if you're LGBT. Also, to your claim about there being more waiting families wanting to adopt than there are children in the system, this may be true, but the system itself is too overburdened and can only work with about 200 active families at a time. Waiting lists for adoption are long, and the screening process is rigorous. This is even assuming the family can afford to adopt.
Man, destroying you is too easy. Now at 12:37, this loser atheist is going to tell us the correct way to read the Bible is in the original languages. Idiot! Even in the New Testament, they were reading translations into Greek because they was becoming the common language at the time, just as by the 1500s, English was emerging into the common language of many people, so there was a need to translate to English. You do not speak those foreign languages! And loading God knows what form of internet version of Greek and Hebrew into a lexicon or something doesn't provide an accurate method of reading the word. God preserved his word. People were working at English translation, and just when English became stable, King James provided the miracle, or overruling the Catholic cult's power, to persecute the translators, and a good translation was performed by actual believers. Blah 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 blah, saying the same thing multiple different ways.
So, first of all, we actually do look at the original Aramaic and Hebrew where we can to determine whether or not a current translation is up to snuff. No legitimate biblical scholar just takes a word and tosses it into a Google Translator and then immediately holds the translation that pops up as the actual way a word should have been used. You're oversimplifying something that if you were to go watch a channel like, say, Digital Hammurabi, you might be able to understand a smidge better. I may not be able to read Aramaic, but Dr. Josh Bowen can, and I would be much faster to use him than Google Translate. Also, I like that subtle no true Scotsman fallacy you just fell into with the Catholics there. Seriously, no scholar looks at the King James Version and takes it seriously as the fundamentally perfect word of God. Biblical scholars look at the text and cross-reference it with what we know about the original text in the original languages to determine both content and context.
I'm still distracted by all the kitty stuff in your background. Dude, that is not normal for a grown man. Do you live at home still by chance? I think you do. Please don't tell me that you're over 30 years old and still live like this.
Ah, boy. For anybody who's seen me on live streams, you know that I put a whole bunch of nerd crap behind me in my setup. That's because, well, I'm a nerd. I enjoy the franchises that I display behind me. Paraphernalia from Yu-Gi-Oh!, Legend of Zelda, Resident Evil, Final Fantasy, and elsewise. But I assume that your point is that anime and such are for kids, right? I guess you've never been introduced to Junji Ito. Here, let me go ahead and flash an example of his work up on the screen. This is from the wonderful manga called Uzumaki. Also, a real man doesn't try to comport himself to what other people think a real man is. A real man doesn't give a shit what other people think about how he comports himself. I'm sorry that you have found yourself to be a slave to societal norms, but I guess breaking out of your shell is really hard for someone who unironically uses the term keyboard warrior while typing half a book into my comment section.
Yep, all pedophiles. A sting catches LGBT_P adult man seeking children.
Oh boy, you are aware that there are predators that are both heterosexual and homosexual, right? Being straight is not the litmus test to determine whether or not you're going to assault someone, a minor or otherwise. Also, you unironically link an article from Breitbart of all places.
At 24 minutes in, this dipshit is upset that I pointed out that the use of the word gay was hijacked after centuries of its use in English that you can find in tons of English literature, not to mention its use in the 1611 KJV and 1599 Geneva Bibles. It's also in tons of songs, including the 1960s Flintstones theme song. But yet this guy wants to go to some French use of the word and then claim that by the 1920s the word was in English commonly used for homosexuality. No, it started becoming used for homosexuality mainstream in the 1970s. Do you idiots actually think that the Flintstones was referencing homosexuality? Wrong! It was still a word used to mean a festive or joyous event. You'll be hard-pressed to find a mainstream film or song using the word gay before 1970 that was referring to homosexuality, and that's a fact. Your loser behind the keyboard here will dance all around moot points and foreign use of a word without ever directly facing the facts, as usual.
Unironically calling me a loser behind a keyboard when you could look into a mirror to find one of those a whole lot faster. Also, if you actually watched my episode, none of my points were contingent on the French origin of the word. And I didn't say that it was mainstream in the 1920s, I said that the word gay had been used by people to denote homosexuality as early as the 1920s. It doesn't matter that mainstream acceptance of that term and that particular usage wasn't introduced until later, but this is all besides the point. You seem to think that words could only have one meaning. This is probably because, again, you don't actually read. The word can mean something different depending on if I'm using it as a verb or a noun. These are what we call homonyms. You know, words like bark, bit, bat. You can bark at bark, and you may have been bit for a bit, and you may have hit a bat with a bat, and all these words had different meanings depending on the context of the sentence. How about the current flow of the current? Or how a doctor would doctor a wound? Or drinking a draught of a beverage whilst writing a rough draft. You could have a high school coach, flying coach, or I could channel all of my spare time into my channel. I think you get the point. There are these magical things called homonyms in the English language, and there's a lot of them. A gay man can have a gay old time, and this sentence works out perfectly fine. The first gay is obviously a descriptor as to whether or not the man is a homosexual, and the second gay is obviously meant to mean the happiness with which he's going to feel during his festivities. But I'm sorry that words that have multiple usages are too complicated for you. But here in America, we actually introduced the concept of a homonym as early as kindergarten. I'm sorry that you missed that class, but it was pretty simple stuff then, and it still is now.
I might watch when I have time to waste, such as when I'm doing some menial task at work, but it's only kind of make me laugh because everything you say is absolutely ridiculous. You spent 5 or 10 minutes of the video just talk him out some white hand symbol that has nothing to do with my blog that you are supposed to be featuring in the video. I might make a short video rebuttal to crush you when I get the chance, but as a busy father when I'm at home, I have to wait for the time that I could do such a thing. And my youngest daughter probably wants to help me make it, so I'll have to make time for that. You know, father-daughter time. Oops, nope, you don't know. You have no idea. The only reason I would even bother is because fools like you make a great example for children to realize why they need to stay away from people like you that like to entice them with your obsession with children's attributes. I was a little proud last night when my 9-year-old made up a new acronym for you guys, since you were complaining about LGBT_P. She said she's just gonna call you FLP. I'll probably upload a video of her saying that later.
Well, I'm glad that you'll take the time to watch the rest of my live stream. I hope you'll do the same courtesy for this video. Anywho, as the video's a live stream, taking a couple minutes to talk about a different topic that's tangentially related is sometimes something I'm gonna do. Deal with it. If you're actually planning on making a video rebuttal, oh, I look forward to that. I revel in people being wrong on camera. As for not knowing about father-daughter time, well, no, I'm not a father, so oof, ya got me. But I do like the subtle ways that you're trying to accuse me of being a child predator. Saying that the way that I've built my studio is literally just a way to entice people to coming over. 1, it's about the most idiotic take one can have. 2, I do this for me. This is the stuff that I like. Also, I do like how proud you are that you're teaching your 9-year-old to be a hateful bigot. I can only assume what the acronym FLP stands for. I'll go ahead and go with Fat Lazy Pervert? Oh, I do hope I'm right. Anywho, it was incredibly fun watching you make a fool of yourself in my comment section. If you do make a video about me, please send me an email making sure that I get notified of it, because I'm not going to subscribe to your channel to make sure of that. Also, as I said before, that open invitation for you to speak with me is there whenever you want to use it. Let me know, and I would be more than happy to talk with you. We can even have an audience if you so desire. Your senpai Pastor Anderson left me on red, so you won't be the same type of coward as he is, right? Anywho, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I hope that I wasn't terribly too harsh. But considering that yesterday's video was a history one, and this one was a bit of a different takedown that was much more, pointed than usual, I hope you guys will forgive me for that. Well, except for you, God's Gun, Guts, and Glory, or Sodom and America, whichever one you want me to call you. You deserved practically everything I said. As always, everyone, insert end of video tagline here.
Yeah.